future is here. You now have the power to unlock the secrets of the hobby. An innovation that will change the way the industry works. The game changer is here. Card Ladder.
Hey everyone, this is Josh back with Cardboard Chronicles. Today I'm joined by Adam Lefkoe. How's it going, Adam?
Man, I feel good. We just talked on my pod. When is this coming out, do you think?
I don't know, like a week or so.
Perfect. Yours is coming out. We're recording this I'm giving away everything. Yours is coming out next Friday. But I could talk to you for like 4 hours, so I'm very excited.
We're just continuing the talk. So Adam comes from NBA on TNT. You're the host of NBA on TNT with Dwayne Wade, Shaq, Candace Parker. Tell us about that. Just like tell us about yourself and
sure.
Just go.
I'll give you everything quickly. First job out of college, I was a one-man band news reporter in Hastings, Nebraska. I was making 2 Lucas Silvers as my salary a year. So about $18,500. I was there for 2 years. They let me do high school football. I moved to Louisville. I was a news reporter. I convinced them to let me do sports. And I was there for about 3.5 years. I covered Anthony Davis in college. I covered Montrezl Harrell at Louisville. I covered Teddy Bridgewater at Louisville and Randall Cobb. I'm trying to put this into like card perspectives and years. I was there for 3.5 years. Kind of shit was a little bit stagnant. And I would go to my friends. I'd say, give me words to say on television. And so I would go on TV that night and I'd be like, happy birthday, Tiffany, touchdown, Saints. And when you're a sports guy, nobody knows what you're doing. So I would give shout outs to people. I'd be like, hey, in the commercial, I'm going to touch my nose. And I'd be like, And I opened it up to Twitter. And so I said, give me your best wrestling references. And I did 30 wrestling references in a sportscast and it spread on the internet. And I went, that was fun. And the next week I did Seinfeld and it exploded. And if you go on YouTube and type in Seinfeld cast, you might even remember me doing this crap. And then I did Rapcast and it really exploded. And it got tweeted out that Monday by Time Magazine. And then 5 minutes later, World Star Hip Hop. And I was like, I have connected worlds. Soon after, I got a call from Bleacher Report. I went to Bleacher Report and in about 6-7 years ago, and I started off doing videos for the app. So if you were in the BR app and you were looking up 3 X factors for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you were looking at my face. And did that for years. And then me and Sims eventually started a podcast with my guy, Josh Fendrick. That kind of grew. Turner owns Bleacher Report. And so they started trying me out. And they tried me out doing some preseason basketball hosting because I had a TV background. And then the match came, the first one, Tiger Woods versus Phil Mickelson. And they had me do the pregame show with Charles Barkley, Samuel L. Jackson, and Pat Perez. And I will never be as more nervous than meeting Samuel L. Jackson, because if he thinks that you're not cool, you are fucked. And he thought I was cool. And he looked at me and he goes, I like your pants. That was the first words that Samuel L. Jackson ever said to me was, I like your pants. And I'll never forget it. And they were like, okay, you did well. Let's try you out for some more stuff. Did more TV. And then this was my first year of doing Tuesday in NBA on TNT. And there are a lot of sets that you walk into that are smaller than you think they're going to be. That is not one of them. That is like a freaking airplane hangar in Atlanta. The production company, the production staff that work down there, the team, it's been like the same core over the years. That's why it's so special to work there, man, because it really is like a family. And like you go in there and everybody knows each other's names and it's such a cool atmosphere. And a lot of it, I think, is because Ernie and Charles set the tone. Like Ernie knows everybody, so who the hell are you not to know everybody? You know what I mean? Like Charles is nice to everybody, so who the hell are you to be an asshole? And man, it was so cool to like watch sports this year and NBA in front of with those people, and then like be posting about it and like having people DM me and being like, "Man, that's so cool!" Like I know I'm in a really cool spot, and that's why I had to bring some cards there because I was like, these need to get some shine at while we're watching hoops right now because I think it's part of the culture.
Yeah, so take us back then to like when you started the card thing. What got you started on cards? Where are you at with it now?
I know it's a tired trope and people roll their eyes, but I give all of the credit to Gary Vaynerchuk. It's a funnier story though than I saw his videos and thought that's a cool idea. I was doing a karaoke contest at D Wade's Budweiser party, and I thought it was going to be in a room, and it ended up being in front of like 200 people, and one of the judges was Gary Vaynerchuk. And me and Taylor Rooks did a Ja Rule Ashanti song, and so I did my full Ja Rule impression, and I didn't even realize Ja Rule was there. So I'm on stage like, everybody get your lighters up, like talking like Ja Rule. And Gary was one of the judges, and he gave me, I think, a 9. And so afterwards I came up to him and I was like, thanks for the 9. He was like, that was a lot of fun, by the way. Like, and I knew someone else. We went out to dinner a month later. And that's when he gave me a 3-hour onslaught of how I need to get into sports cards. And he told it to me in 2 ways. And I think it's important to be transparent because I think a lot of people have questions about Gary and intentions. And so I'd like to just give my story as an example of human interaction. He said mainly, this thing is going crazy right now. It's really early, but it's already going crazy. You'd be stupid not to get into it. And I went, okay, that makes sense. And I see what you're showing me. But then he said, think about what you do. He said, you talk about sports. He said, you're going to go on your show and you're going to say that quarterback A is going to be better than quarterback B. Why not invest in that? Like, the only good thing that you ever get with you and your friends, you get to tell them that they're wrong. Or like you bet like some money on it. But like, who's somebody that you really liked? And I said Mahomes. And it just, for me, clicked in terms of, like, look, man, like Yahoo just changed their phrasing that they don't want to say that they're buying players anymore, and they're not called auctions. They're called salary cap teams because of the terminology. The thing that I always appreciate about the sports cards is I'm not buying anybody. I'm investing in Dame Lillard. I'm buying stock in Dame Lillard. Like, if there's any of these groups that are the most forward thinking to like player empowerment, it is sports cards. You know, we're not auctioning. Yeah, I mean, I guess there are auctions, but it's for an investment in somebody. So he got me in. I got a LeBron Topps Chrome rookie that night. I sucked it up and I hit buy and I didn't even look at it, and I did not tell my fiance, and I got a Luka base and a Trey Silver, which I think is so funny that I'm talking. Those were the first 3 that I bought that night. And then Corona hit 2 days later, and I'm like, I'm a fucking idiot. And then 3 months later, he texted me back and he goes, have you looked at them recently? Or 2 months later, I said, nope. And I looked and I went, dear God, like, it's gone from 6'9" to 9'6" in 2 months during a pandemic. And that's when I dove in. And I just started consuming as much content. I was reading everything. I was DMing with people like yourself, and just learning. And it's now been about 5 months, I would say, of just throwing myself in and enjoying all of the aspects and getting out of base Prism is God stage. And it's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a fun progression for me to watch. Like you said, getting out of the base stage. So like you came into it kind of the investing side, the Gary side, and a lot of people, like you said, might like scoff at that. But since you've been in it, like, what is your take on the whole investing versus collecting? Like, how do you feel like you've dove into that side of it?
I think that everybody needs to realize that we're all in it for the same dopamine. And we just get hit by different sensors. Some of us look at profit, and I'm saying us as humans. Some of us look at profit and it gives them a rush. They love it. That's what they do. They flip houses. That's their thing. Some people love looking at art. Some people like collecting. And I don't think that we have to be in competition with each other. I don't want to go like super kumbaya, but they all support each other. The gambling community for the NFL does not take away money from the fantasy community. They're not at odds with each other. In fact, you can gamble on fantasy. And I kind of look at it as flipping is gambling, case breaking is blackjack. There's different levels to all of this stuff. And I think it's something I said at the end of my pod where it's like, if you don't see the challenge in finding investments in different unique places to go up, then why are you in this to begin with? Like, that would be like me getting into the stock market and being like, see the price of Apple? Shit, man. Like, I guess I got to wait for Apple to go down. And it's like, there's an infinite amount of other stocks that you can play to get back to it. I think that some people want to do deep dive podcasts, and that's what they want to do. Some people want to do topic themed things about like a shout out to 90s b-ball, doing inserts, like own that lane, bro. Like I'm going to shout out all these people. Like, your podcast and what you do with Chris is great because it's like two people that really get it listening into a fireside chat. Sports Card Investor is like, I'm going to crack down on people. And I'm like, drink that Coke, bro. Let's get after it. I'm in like, I don't listen to everybody regularly, but I kind of dance around. And my thing is as long as you're not pumping and dumping, as long as you're not in this to manipulate people, then I think that we can all exist and we can all make money as I try and fix this camera.
Yeah, that's a great perspective. And I mean, the unique thing that you bring obviously is like being in the actual sports community. Like sometimes I feel like sports cards are a little bit too disconnected, and we need to remember this is like about the actual athletes in the sport. So bring us that perspective. Like, you're actually talking to these guys. You're on the set with some of them. What do they think about sports cards? Have you showed them? Like, what's the feel there?
So when I had those cards on set, Wade was like, "And what you got on?" He even says like, "What do you have on the set there?" And I was like, "They're sports cards." And he like laughed and he's like, "Man, like I've been hearing that they're buzzing, and like I want to talk because I kind of want to get into it, but it's like it's a lot of money to get into it." And I was like, "I don't know how you're being pitched right now." I was like, "You don't need to go in." Like I was like, "You could just get some of yourself, man. Like, and it'll be really cool." And they were digging it. And then I started to explain to them the prices, and they were like, "Man, I got boxes of paninis at my place right now that they're trying to get me to sign." And I was like, "Yeah, like then they get like a little bit remorseful, like, man, I wish I kept them over those years," because that's kind of how they're looking at it. For me, I showed Wade one of the cards that I have, the 2003 Fleer, where it's him, Melo, and LeBron. And I was like, "What do you think about this?" And he goes, "Yo, that's so tough." He was like, "Look at us." He's like, "Look how young we are." And that was such a cool thing, because that's the reason we all love rookies. Is rookie Giannis will never look like that. Like Giannis will never look like rookie Giannis again. So it's like this cool moment in time. But for them, that's when they take so many pictures for these card companies. So that was really cool. I seen Shaq comment, but I really didn't get a chance to talk to him about it. Other athletes, like I sent Travis Kelce his Topps Chrome rookie picture, and he's like, "I fucking hate everything about that." And I was like, "Bro, it is so you though, like just hamming it up." I think what's interesting is people hate when I pitch this idea is I want to give not all of the one-of-ones, but I want to give a few of the one-of-ones to the athletes. And people fucking hate this. But it's almost like giving some of the most prized stock to like the founder of the company. And if there was ever a time where like Travis Kelce was like, "You know what, like these really don't mean this much to me, and maybe I want to auction this off and support my charity that I do," and kind of it enters into the ecosystem like that, like I don't know. Like, and people fucking hate this idea, and I get it, but I just want to give a lot of heavy stakes early to the rookies, that if their career's really going, like, I don't know, there's a cool way of like Giannis auctioning off his own one of ones to people where it's only going to raise the cost, and people, it'll make it an event. But I also know that everyone's, going for certain packs, and I don't want to overproduce, but I want them to start off with an investment portfolio of themselves, and they can see what the market is, and then they can play in the market. They could trade their own cards for other ones, but I don't know. That's just a weird thought I have.
So how do we get the athletes more into it, other than like giving them the one-on-ones? Any other ideas?
Because that's what I think that they're going to eventually get into it.
Yeah.
Because I believe that baseball players are already into it more than any other sport. Like, I don't see NFL players sitting in stadiums cracking boxes like I do see some Major League Baseball players. But I know that there are other people that are around these players that coaches and stuff that I think are maybe talking about it. A lot of it comes down to the financial advisors in terms of being invested. But I also think, I don't know how you feel about this. I'm doing a lot of talking right now, but in like Topps 2020, we're getting artists involved. Have they had things where athletes have designed their own cards?
No, they haven't. And that's an interesting point. I mean, they're, obviously like their jerseys are in the cards, their autographs and stuff. Yeah. I don't think they've actually collaborated on the designs.
They're designing their own shoes.
Yeah.
I see Darius Baisley on TV all the time holding up New Balances, and he's not even LeBron or any of these guys, but I'm like, Panini, if you're like, hey, we think that LaMelo is going to be a star, maybe there's a LaMelo custom with a designer, and he does his own line, and maybe he gets a percentage. That's, there are other avenues that work with athletes that have found cool ways to do it,
Yeah. Because I mean, like, shoes,
athlete, I might look into making my own cards.
Shoes are like culturally a part of the system for the athletes. Like, the athletes get into the shoes, they wear them, they promote them, they love them, they collect them now. A lot of guys, they talk about it. And I think cards are slowly getting closer into like cultural relevance for these guys. And it's not like nerdy anymore, just collecting. And it's more of like a fun, cool thing.
When I hear people talk about different shoes, because Bleacher Report is varying with like BR Kicks and all of that, they'll be like, what I loved from LeBron? I love the LeBron Soldiers. And there's like this one style of LeBron that came out a few years ago, and it has like a strap, and it's a very clean looking shoe. And there are other LeBrons and people don't like them as much. But that's the same conversation that we have with cards, where I'm hearing people now being like, what? I like the look of that 2013 Prism. It's a good year, and it's the same thing. Like, there's nothing symbolic about, like, yeah, I know the Heat and the championship, totally. But it's the same thing with, I just like that style of shoe. And I think that we're not there yet in the sports card discussion, because I still think we're trying to figure out who the GOATs are. Where, like, if you looked up top 10 sneakers of all time, that a Jordan 3 cement is going to be on that list. That a Jordan 1 bread, black and red, is going to be on that list. That someone's going to throw Kanye's Red October on that list. We know but I don't know if that's been made yet. And so we're in this interesting era where people are starting to make lists, and it's all subjective, and it's very interesting to see how it evolves.
So this isn't card related, but I've just always been so curious about the connection to like these actual like personalities. So you're around like Shaq and Barkley. Just kind of give us like a feel of someone that's around these guys, because we just get the TV version of it, and I feel like they're super genuine, those two guys, and I feel like that's why the show is so successful, is that they're just up there having fun, and it's not like this rigid, thing where it's just like, just let Barkley go and have Shaq yell at him. Like, what is that actually like, being around those kind of guys?
Charles is one of the most genuinely kind, good people you'll ever meet. Every time I go out, and I'm usually running 5 minutes late, he's there talking to random people. He's the kind of people that everybody wants to talk to him, and he gives them the time of day. I asked Charles, this is a cool story that I'll relay. I asked him, when did you discover that being honest was good for you? Like, how did you get to own the I'm just being honest lane and nobody dislikes you? And he said that when he was a young player with the Sixers, that Dr. J used to tell him all the time, stop trying to make the media happy. It's never going to work. And he said that he watched, this is such a cool story. He watched the Phillies do a press conference or like a post-game interview when they were in a losing streak. And he wrote down everything they said. And it was like, I'm going to hold the team accountable. I'm going to be a leader, and I'm going to do the example that needs to be set. And so, what do you know? Next season, the Sixers, they're on like a 3-game losing streak. And I found my note. I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to hold them accountable. And he gets on TV that night because the Phillies were applauded. He was like, they were going nuts. They're like, what great leaders. And that night, the Philadelphia people went on and they were like, he is selfish. He's entitled. He thinks he's more important. He's going to lead them. And he went, I said the exact same thing that they said. And that's when it clicked. Who am I doing this for? I'm just going to be me. And it's very rare in life, and they're both like this, because Shaq is also, he is a giver. He cares about people. Shaq, though, has the best internal clock of, we're going a little bit slow. I'm going to do something crazy. And they genuinely love each other. And Charles will be the only one in the room that'll be like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So when you have somebody that naturally wants to create magic, and Charles, who will say the perfect thing at the perfect time, it's amazing. But I am here to attest to their character. They are both awesome dudes. And me and Shaq really connected at the end of this most recent run and had like a really, really good time together. And so I'm happy that I have one of his cards, because it's cool to have cards of your coworkers. That's a weird thing. I like it.
That's funny hearing you talk about like, hey, Wade, Dwayne, I've got your card right here. Here's your picture. And it's just like, it's an interesting conversation, right? Yes.
I think it's funny too, because it's like, I would love to change that narrative where like, if I had, I'm just going to grab a random card. So on my show, I have a show coming out this year where I fix Madden ratings. It's going to be on Bleacher Report. It's going to be called Underrated. And oddly enough, one of the guys we're doing is Fred Warner. And here is an under the radar Fred Warner. So I was like, I showed it to him during the shoot. I was like, the universe is a funny place. But if I show this to Fred Warner, I think there's this thing before where it would seem like I believe that I'm lower than him. And that I have something with your picture on it. And I would love to change that narrative to be like, no, bro, like I believe in you. And that's why I have this card. Where it goes from you're more important than me to I believe in you. And I think that's a more healthy way to look at it from if you're on the fence and you don't want to seem I want to get rid of that old belief of how people are that collect cards.
Yeah, I mean, there's like a pretty big wave of new people coming in, and it's changing a lot of the rules. So like what rules did you come in, unwritten rules that you were like, that doesn't make any sense, I hate that rule, and you've tried to like fight it?
I didn't, and it's the number one thing that people kick them for is either not getting in this sooner or not spending more money. Like at this point with where we are, that's usually the issues. I remember coming in and being like, why is no one buying Kawhi? And then people were like, he's just not, he's not a real big talker, and like he doesn't really get a lot of hobby love. And I would be like the notion that like the hobby has favorites was one that I just relied on too much in the beginning. I think what you've done in fantasy football has been, I feel like you've made people feel okay of buying wide receivers, because the other hobby law that I heard is don't even bother if they're not a quarterback. And I was like, but I just saw Jerry Rice sell for a shitload of fucking money. Like, are we just, people, and now it's changing, and I still feel like we're early, but people were like, here's a rule of football. Quarterbacks, Barry Sanders and Jerry Rice. Everybody else, fuck them. And I was like, what? Like, there are so many cool NFL players that we're going to talk about forever. And so that was a rule that I heard early on. I still feel like this is a smart way, but people were like, fuck everything but rookie cards. And now as I'm watching like 90s Jordan slowly get like pew 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 pew, and I'm like, they're like, what about 97? What about 98? What about 96? Ooh, what about, you know what I mean? Like I'm watching people diversify more. I still though think that those rules are great for beginners, because when you're first coming in and you're so overwhelmed at the amount of options, if you don't have rules, it is madness. So those rules are great in the beginning, but now I'm realizing they don't need to be hard and fast.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, learning about pop reports as early as I did compared to some of the other people that I know that are in it has helped me out a lot. Because even in sets that I think have been popular, let's say a 2012 Prism, that I am a huge fucking fan of because I just think that they're pretty cards. Looking at pop reports of certain players and being like, look, man, I know that I like this guy a little bit more, but these numbers are crazy that I have to get in. Like that was a little bit of guidance for me in the beginning to even steer me where I may have gone on crazier things.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the rules are good, like you said, to get started, but I feel like the people that are most successful with it and have the most fun are the ones that just ignore that stuff and like go, buy what you like or find, like you said, Kawhi. I mean, why would people not collect Kawhi? He's like going to be one of the greatest of all time if he keeps this up.
Can I be a devil's advocate? One thing that, as I've said, and I said this on my show, the thing that I love about Card Ladder is I wake up in the morning and I go, ooh, I went up 2.8%. I am a intelligent, hustling baller. And I feel great. And it makes them, and if it goes down, I justify it. I'm like, Tyler Hero is going to play well. We're going to be okay. He's going to bounce back. But I think as we get so many tools right now, and I'm not going to name the other tools that are out there, I do think that seeing those numbers is putting more of a premium on profit in my brain, and it steers me more in that direction. And I'm curious, as someone that created it, how do you feel about the fact that it's that much more accessible to find the money and track it and then value your cards based on value and not what you were saying, which is like that emotional heartstring?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it just like tells me where to steer away from, to be honest. Like I've always been one to like see what's growing and booming and try to find like a parallel or a difference of something, that's semi-related to it, and like go after that instead and like keep like trying to stay ahead of the game. So like when I see, top 5 card videos, I'm like, okay, well, so I'm not buying that stuff. I'm not buying top 10 cards in the ladder, even, to be honest, like, cause that means that everyone else is buying it and it's hot as hell and I'm going to go buy the next thing.
Isn't that the funniest thing, that this is such a great message, and most people that consume your content already know this. But if you know me and you're just listening to this because you don't know this content, if you see a top 5 hottest cards in the sports card, do not buy those. That's like almost like it's like getting to the warning track in baseball. It's like they've hit the peak now, and you may have missed the boat. Now it's great when your card is on that list because you're like, oh, I nailed that, and it's sort of like seeing a hot or not in fantasy, where you're not going to be able to go out and get those guys now, but if you happen to have one, it feels good. But
Yeah.
That's more of a steer clear, or let's look at the year of the card, let's look at the make of the card, let's look at the style of the card, and is there any that are like that are undervalued? That's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, so if I see like Pokemon blowing up, all right, well, what's similar to Pokemon? Maybe Magic needs to be a big thing, or Yu-Gi-Oh, or whatever the hell. I don't know what else there is, but something like that. Or like I see wrestling, and I think, oh, why isn't like tennis getting some love? Tennis is pretty cool. I mean, it's not wrestling; it's different, but like it's sort of like an odd thing that's very different.
You are not alone in that. You are
Yeah.
not alone, and I think that a lot of this is coming.
And I think that's where, the hobby itself right now is kind of fun, because we're just seeing things pop up that people are grabbing onto, and they're gravitating to it because it's culturally relevant and it's something that they enjoy.
If you were to ask me what's my favorite card that I have, the one that I'd probably give you right now is my 97 rookie rock card, the Rocky Maivia 9.5. It's, for me, to see Rocky Maivia, because I used to, when people would talk about The Rock, I'd be like, well, his first wrestling name was Rocky Maivia, because I loved him even back then. I had remember those things, they were pillows, but if you slam them, it would be like, oh, I had a Rocky Maivia, one of those. And for me, it's not just about what's cool, whatever. It's like, when I see that, I think about where he is now and where he was then. And if even he thought that he could get to that level. You know, when you look at an 86 Fleer and you see Jordan going through the air, like, you kind of look in his eyes and you're like, do you think he even knew that he was going to win 6 rings at this point? You know? And that's the coolest thing for me, is like getting this little moment in time that if they were to see it, like if somebody ever got a chance to interview Jordan and showed him that card and was like, do you remember this play? And to think back to what you were like then, where you are now, sitting here in front of me, smoking this cigar, 6 rings on your fingers with like the largest shoe company ever, and you own an NBA team. Like, could you have ever thought that while you were in the air? To me, that's the card content that I love, where it's treating them like art and artifacts and not being like, and this has X amount of profit, you should invest. It's like, that's the bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what those like more organic, genuine things are what's making this stuff go up for real anyways, instead of crashing and pumping and dumping and stuff. All right, so I have a question. Everyone wants to know, everyone always asks, like, are we in a bubble? What's the market doing? I want to know about your goals. Like, what are you trying to get out of the hobby? What do you want to build? Trying to like separate yourself from like, oh, I think, you know, the hobby's going to do this. What are you trying to do for yourself?
I thought about this morning. My goal is to enjoy this community, to continue to use sports cards to fuel and intertwine with my current job, which is staying informed. Because I'm not going to lie, when I see, you know, Donovan Mitchell's card spikes, I go, okay, well, guess what? If I was going on TV tonight, I should probably talk about Donovan Mitchell, because people clearly care about him. And from a collector financial standpoint, I look at it as a way of climbing the ladder to help me make big purchases in my life for my family. That's what I have come to the conclusion for. That, why am I spending this on big cards and I'm looking at vintage and I'm seeing growth and whatever? Because when I end up buying a house with my fiance and my kids, I'd like to have my cards fund it. That sounds amazing to me. And then, oh, but you lose all the cards. Okay, I'll get back in and I'll climb the ladder again. But for me, it's like, if I can use, obviously if I can avoid selling all of them, that would be great. But if I can use what is currently a passion for my hobbies, I love sports, for my career, and invest in a way that it'll get back to my family, that to me sounds like the purest way to do this. Because the whole like, I want this money, I want to take over the world, and I want to have the best collection, to me that all feels self-serving. But if it's kind of like going back in, that feels clean to me. That's just my take.
And that's been my whole thing for a long time as well, is like, this is, you know, it's about building like a legacy for your family too, right? You're trying to build something, and there is like the aspect of the chase where it's like you get all the way to the top card or whatever, and you're like, all right, now what? So, you know, it's like, oh, I almost want to like sell it and do it, just prove that I can do it again with some other player.
That is a lesson that we all should have learned from video games growing up. That when you win that first Super Bowl in Madden, that shit is disappointing, because your coach gets put on the player's shoulders and confetti comes down and they're walking around and you're like, fuck yeah, man, we won the Super Bowl. And then a silver box pops up in the middle of the screen and it says, congratulations, you won the Super Bowl. Press OK to enter the off season. And you're like, that's it? That's it. And I have not bought a Grail, and I'm sure that you can sit there and that first time you're holding it, your hand's shaking and it's amazing. But eventually it's going to be like, what's next? Yeah. And I think it's in life, it's with everything, where it's, you there is nothing that's going to make you happy. If you're happy all the time, you will be happy and you'll enjoy those moments because you're happy. Like that's how I look at it. But it's a constant quest. It's enjoying the journey. You love the process. You are a human that loves the process. Like I bet you enjoyed all those grinding hours of making Card Ladder more than people telling you congratulations right now for doing it. Like I
100%.
bet you just loved working on it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, they tell me if I hear that, I'm like, well, what don't you like? I got to go fix that, or I got to take it to the next level. The other funny one that I think of is like, you know, how in fantasy football, it's like this big thing where you're with your buddies and you're going to compete and beat them. And then you win the fantasy championship and you're literally at your house and it like the game didn't end. It's like in the middle of the game, but your fantasy game is basically over. And you're just like, yes, nobody else cares because they all hate me because I beat them. And it's like just me. And my wife even is like, why are you so happy? Who cares? It's not even real. Like, okay, never mind. Like, I'll just do it again next year.
And it's, and so that's why, it's now we're getting very philosophical. It's also the way like you define your success. There are some people that define their success with their job. Well, who are you? Well, I'm a host. And the problem is that if you lose that job, you've lost your metric of success. Whereas if your metric of success is I just want to be happy and I want to like have a legacy and feed my kids and all that. This is all coming from someone who does not have kids. But then it's like, okay, as long as I do that, I'm successful. And the other stuff is just a cherry on top. And that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now is I've never been able to connect with sports fans better than when I got into cards. Where before I'd be like, man, I love Dame Lillard. And then people would be like, he's not better than Steph Curry. And I was like, ugh, like, I didn't even say that. Like, why are you yelling at me? He's overrated. But with sports cards, people are like, ooh, I do like that. You know what? I like the variations on his cards. And it just seems like a healthier group of people to me.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, what's your take on just like having money like invested in someone that's playing actively? Is that something that makes you nervous, or are you trying to like buy more of the older guys, like you said, vintage? Like how do you kind of handle that?
So it's funny. I made a little list of time periods that I thought, okay, I'll go after this time period and this time period and like make investments for each of that. So I did like a NBA playoff bubble list of guys. I have like an early starter kit to start the NFL season, and I spent the amount of money that I thought was okay. The problem is that as you're seeing different stuff on, am I skipping around or am I okay video wise?
You're okay.
Oh, I'm okay now. Okay. You see new opportunities and you're like, I want to jump on that opportunity too. So you tell me, is it better if I say the names of the players I bought and I haven't sold yet? Or would that be a pumping and dumping situation? I'm trying to be transparent.
You can't win with that, dude. Like I still get that all the time. But that's why all I can say is that like I bought the cards that I like, and this is what it is. I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah. Okay. So I bought a few guys that I thought would perform really well in the bubble. They have. And now I have to remind myself that that's the reason that I bought them was for this time period. Stop thinking they're going to keep going up and take the sale. But it was good for me to know that these predictions that I saw, I guess should I say them? See, this is weird.
Say one. Just pick one guy.
Like Lillard's the perfect example. Like I'm kicking myself that when I was looking at Lillard's prices at $600 for a base 10 and like, dude, $1,200 for a silver. I was sitting there going, he's a 2012 Prism. It's the best year. Like it's the first year of Prism. All the pops are under 500 for the base cards. The silvers are in the dozens. I kicked myself that I diversified and I didn't just spend it all on Lillard. Because I was sitting there getting ready for NBA on TNT going, I mean, people know that he averaged 48 points per game for like a 6-game stretch in January, right? And this is the same season. Like he's going to be a top 5 MVP vote getter. Like that's one that I was like, okay. So then I invested in a few guys for this upcoming NFL season. I invested in a few guys that I believe that where they are in their careers, they already got some Super Bowl rings. and that I think that they're highly undervalued in the market. I invested in them. NBA, I went and I got some upcoming Hall of Famers that I could see as something then. And then I went heavier into vintage because I don't think it's smart using 2018 Luka or 2019 Zion as a barometer of where prices should be for vintage. But I do think that when I look at the pop reports of these vintage and the importance that these people have in the game, and frankly, that next year is the 75th anniversary of the NBA. So a lot of our conversations will be a lot much more in historic context. I think that I just went, if I'm going to get an NBA, let me get my favorite NBA players of all time. And one of them is Kareem. I'm just going to come out and say it. I love Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I think that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a top 5 NBA player. I think he's one of the few guys that you can make a number one argument for. I also think, to be honest, as we went through all this stuff in our society, he's the most poignant NBA player of all time. He's been involved with societal change. He is a true leader. He's arguably the greatest college basketball player of all time. And every time he writes something, it's like mandatory reading for my soul. And so when I think about the greatest players of all time, you know, his name was Lou Alcindor. He changed it back to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was standing in that room with Muhammad Ali. Like, there were no, like, I don't think there were any other NBA players in there. Like Jim Brown was in there, but like Jackie Robinson, like, I don't know if that last one was accurate, but I don't know. I look at certain people as like true heroes of the game. And those are the people that I want, because to me, that is history. And it's supposed to be here tomorrow. And when I get it, like, I'm just going to stare, because that's the shit that makes me feel something, man. Like, and that's the stuff where I look at it and I really feel like it should be in a museum, and my hand's going to shake. And that's what I'm excited about.
I hope people are picking up on like the fact that a lot of like people coming into the hobby like yourself aren't just like in it to make the quick buck. You know, you're coming in with like, dude, these are like my heroes. You know, these are people that I've always looked up to in my life. And now you're telling me I can like own a piece of their history and like say that it has value on it. Like, man, it's just like a really powerful thing that I think is why a big part of why the hobby's taken off so much is just that feeling you get, right?
I think that, and I also think if we're going to get into like some psychoanalytical anecdotes that I have no basis of knowing that they're true, I love the fact, and I think these two things are the same size. And so there's something about holding this, and it's probably because of our dumb Neanderthal brains and how now we're all obsessed with these things. But there's something really comforting about having something this size in my hand. And there's something about the slab, and I don't care if you're a BGS guy or a PSA guy, it doesn't really matter, or an SGC or a CGI or a whatever the hell is coming out now. But cards, to me, I get really nervous holding the raw, you know? But there's something so safe about this and clean that I trust it more, you know? Like, it gives me security where I didn't know about graded slabs until I got back in. Like, I thought that people, I didn't realize that was a company. And so that gives me a lot of security.
So to close it out, just what, like, you know, being in it about 5 months.
Gosh, am I talking too much?
No, you're not.
Okay.
What like advice would you give someone new that's watching this and they're like, man, he's really connecting with me. I get what he's saying. Like, and then they want to jump in. What like advice? You're at like that peak where people need to be tapping into your advice right now more than mine, because I joined so long ago that you're the one that's like got the fresh eyes. So what's like that fresh eyes perspective thing?
So this would be my advice in everything, but especially with this. What you were saying before, going in for the right reasons. If you're trying to be the wolf that's going into the sheep herd and you think you're going to come into sports cards and make a buck and that everybody else is an idiot, my number one piece of advice is you are the sheep and you are walking into a thing of a wolf den. But the thing that you need to realize is there are no fucking wolves and there are no sheep, because it doesn't need to be like that. So my first piece of advice is come in and just want to be involved, and come in good-natured. Come in knowing that you don't know anything and that you are never going to learn everything. Come in and know what your opinions are. Like I say this to young professionals getting into sports broadcasting. If you want to get better at coming up with your own opinions, stop watching First Take. Because what's going to happen is you're just going to take their opinions. Like subconsciously, the next time someone asks you about LeBron, you're going to think of Stephen A. and you're going to think of Max Kellerman. So sit down with lists of the greatest football players of all time, the greatest basketball players of all time, and circle who you really like, who you enjoyed watching. You know, if you're a fan of a team, really, who do you have posters up on your wall? What jerseys do you have? Like start there. And then it comes into learning. My other piece of advice for people that are getting into it right now is when you reach out to somebody that is really in it and has been in it for a long time, you need to understand that it is not beholden of them to help you. Like, and I'm not saying that as a cautionary tale to not reach out. I'm saying you need to learn how to reach out better. So I would say this to people all the time. Do not email me and ask for an internship. I don't know you. Why would I vouch for you? Realize that if you're emailing me, how many else? I'm getting 40 a week. Okay, so think about that. Now, if you want to get a job, I would say reach out and do work for somebody without even asking them. Hey, Adam, I see that you've been getting into sports cards recently, and I would love to work with you at Bleacher Report. I've made 3 different templates for an Instagram video that you might be able to use. This is the kind of stuff that I could do for you on your show. You don't think I'm going to look at that and be like, holy crap, like maybe I should work with this kid? Same thing with sports cards. You know what I mean? Hey, Josh, I see that you've been collecting a lot of football recently. I saw on my slabs this underpriced Randy Moss card. I saw that you collected Randy Moss. Is this something that fits in? Sorry, I'm just trying to learn. Like, you're going to totally look at that person differently and be like, wow, like he really, like he saw the stuff that I was collecting. And even if I know that this is really me telling him that Randy Moss card is shit because it was like an off year and it doesn't really matter, at least you're talking about something you're already interested in Randy Moss. And then you can create a relationship, but people need to realize that these need to go two-way. And so that if you reach out to someone, if they're going to be giving you information, you need to be giving them something, because otherwise Josh can be spending his time on the ladder looking up cards to invest in. And so that's my big advice is it's going to take your time. So instead of bemoaning that and trying to do shortcuts, invest in people in the hobby, just like you would invest in cards in the hobby.
I've never had that on this show, and I've never had anyone talk about that, and I love it.
It's great. It felt fucking good coming out. Like I didn't know where it was going to go.
I don't know if I should ask another question. I feel like we should just, like, I think you nailed it there with that last one.
How about this? Can I ask? Can I do one thing?
Yeah.
What are the aspects of talking about cards that you enjoy talking about the most?
I love talking about what other people like and why they like it. So like you're kind of going into the Kareem stuff is probably my favorite part, because you're saying like, I didn't even know. I mean, I knew about Kareem and I know about his history and I know he's like socially involved, but to hear someone say that like that's one of the reasons you like their basketball cards is very interesting to me. And it's like it makes sense, because I like LeBron because he builds schools for kids, right? He does all these crazy things outside of basketball, and that's why I like him. Yeah. And I like his unselfish play on the court. It's not just like I like his highlights and his dunks and his YouTube. It's kind of the whole thing, right?
I think that's where you can really tell early on by how an athlete carries themselves. into what they're going to be long term. And that's why, to me, if we're looking at, let's just talk about some of these young 2019 guys that I'm not investing in, because 2019 scares the fuck out of me, because I have no idea about these printing numbers, and I'm seeing cases get broken, and I think Zion's hitting 20K, and it just scares me. But I love when I read quotes from John Morant where he's like, I'm giving you everything. I train out with my dad. He's my biggest hater. And I hear quotes like that and I go, this is giving me Dame vibes, because I loved Dame when he was coming in. That's why I bought Dame early, and I talk about Dame now because I love the loyalty, and I love that he's making rap songs, and that when I saw LeBron's kid give his top 5, he put Dame on it. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, because you know that if LeBron's son has a top 5, you know damn well he's been sitting there at the table during Taco Tuesday and somebody asked LeBron who's in his top 5 and he probably dropped Dame. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I like ball players' favorite ball players. Like, that's cool to me. Like, who would they collect? They'd collect Dame. I think that's great. But, man, I forget. Oh, 2019. So then I look at Luka. Luka's just a star, man. And everything about him, from he's a kid, the fact that like he learned under Nowitzki, the fact that like all the ball players I talk to love that kid and wish they could play with him, man. Like, it's just weird because it's like, I bet in 2003 people were like, oh, you're gonna invest on that LeBron guy. Like, sometimes they do come along, and Luka feels like that guy. And that's why, Pot reports be damned, I'm having a hard time selling that base, because I'm like, it's a piece of history. Like, I really think this guy could be top 10.
Yeah. What about Zion then? Just go ahead. Just say Zion, yes or no?
I'm just too afraid of too many things. I'm too afraid of the health. I'm too afraid of the weight. Like, I will say this. I know the people that are around Zion, and I believe that he's one of those kids that it's not going to be like an Anthony Bennett or a Jamarcus Russell. It's like, this guy went to Duke. This guy has a circle around him that is going to keep, that he is focused and he's going to attack, and I have faith that he will succeed. But I don't know. I mean, if you're going to buy him, now's the time. Like, buy this dip in the next month or two, and I might. Like, you know what? I'll say it right here. I might buy a Zion Silver, because I'm not going to get a base. I'm out of that shit. The silver seems like a more respectable play. But with these pop reports, it's like, I don't have to invest in him now, is what I'm saying. There are too many opportunities for guys in the late 90s, early 2000s, in the 80s, in the 70s that I can get right now at prices that I think are going to go a lot higher. I think I can wait on Zion, because I think that these markets are going to fluctuate a lot. You know, when I look at the Bol Bols and the Jaren Jackson Juniors and stuff and realize they're all in the same year, I can come back to 2019 later, is kind of how I'm playing.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, I mean, I love hearing new people come in and kind of like, I always talk about like dispersing through the hobby and like finding new things. And it seems like you're adapting pretty well to that, and you're seeing the base card thing, and now you're sort of like graduating to, okay, what else is there? What vintage, you know, silvers, and then you'll start messaging me about RPAs and contenders and autos. And
this is my advice to anybody that's in the hobby that's wondering if they should trade a card. Go on FaceTime with one of your best, oldest friends, and then show them their cards, and look at the order in which you present them to them, and the joy and the excitement in which you talk about them when you pick them up. And if there's a card that you pick up and you go, oh, and here's this one, and you move on to the next one, immediately put it into the sell category, because it's not bringing you joy. And that was my oh shit moment with base cards. Was I got my friend on the phone who does some collecting too, and all of these cards I started picking up, and I wanted to move on to the next one. And I went, fuck, they're not bringing me joy. They did, you know, when I first got them, and I was like, oh, look at this. But they're not there anymore. And I think that's that's the new way in which I'm going to play this hobby is, what's that lady tidying up with Marie Kondo? I did the same thing with my clothes, where I went through all of my clothes and I held them and I was like, this brings me no joy. And I gave it to Goodwill. And so that's what I think I'm going to do with the hobby now. That's how I think I'm going to approach it.
That's always been one of my big things on this channel is like consolidation. And so I only have like probably like 60 cards total, and I've gotten most of those in the last month of football cards. Like I only have like 25 basketball cards I would consider to be like my collection. And it's just because, yeah, like as I've moved through stuff, like I just, this one doesn't bring me joy anymore, and I get 10 times as much joy from this one than I do these 40. So like I'm gonna just sell these 40.
I'm gonna have your boy Chris on my pod soon, and because I got to get both of the card ladder guys love. And he also put together like this incredible email of like bullet points, what he wants to talk about. And I was like, okay, Chris, I love it. But he loves to talk about the collector gene. That's like, he brings it up once a show. I am going to do a little bit of counter. I don't want everyone in the hobby to like me. The collector gene is also a problem. And I think that we need to talk about it a little bit, because it's great to have collections, but there's some people out there that are hoarding. And I'm telling you that you'd have a lot more joy if you went out there and all those cards that you're like, oh, but I kind of like it. It's like with everything, focus on the stuff that brings you a lot of joy. Like stop spreading yourself so thin. Like you're sitting on all these cards that are like, it's fun because it's like, wow, it's a lot of cards. But I'm like, man, if you flipped all of those, you could get like some cards that you really, really like. And it's the same thing with making content. Oh, I want to talk about what's going on in the market right now, and I want to talk about the things that I really care about. It's like, no, only talk about the things that you care about. Everything else is distracting you. That's like being like, I met the woman of my dreams, but I have 3 others that I really like a lot, and that they're really, it's like, no, trust me, spend all of your time with the woman of your dreams because that's the shit that matters. But I looked at my friend Evan's apartment the other day, and it's just like boxes and boxes of raw cards. And I'm just like, either fucking sell them or get them graded, because they're literally, you don't look at them. Like you're not a card store. You know what I mean? Like you don't have an eBay where you're seeing them or anything like that. Like, like let's keep it moving, man. Like it's more fun if you keep it moving.
Yeah, all the new people that I bring in, like my friends and stuff, same thing. They've got piles, and I'm like, make decisions on every single one of these things right now. Like you're either grading, selling, flipping, keeping forever. Like let's make some decisions. And then they're like, well, I want to grade all these and then wait 6 months for that money to come back. I'm like, no, just keep it going, keep moving, and like keep making decisions.
Well, for me, I know what they do because I do this. I spend my time organizing them.
Yeah.
So what you do is you sit down, you go, which ones am I going to sell? And all you do is you make cool little sections and you write things in marker and you take your shit and you organize your shit so that it's, instead of just shit, it's organized shit. And that feels really good, but they're still just sitting there. And I don't know. That's, I'm speaking out, I'm really trying to motivate myself, Josh, to sell my own stuff.
Says the guy who hasn't sold one card.
I've sold one. I sold my first card today.
What did you sell?
I sold a Dragon Scale 2019 Carson Wentz out of 88 select. That the only reason I sold it was I showed some cards off in an IG story, and some guy hit me up and was like, I want that Wentz. And he's like, the closest comp for it is 40. And I swear to God, I said, nope, I want to sell it to you for $33. And he was like, what? And I was like, because my audience on my show calls themselves the 33%, and this is my first sale, and I want it to be for $33. And he was like, okay, deal. And I put in an Andrew Bynum Sixers card because he's a Philly guy. And we talked about this before. I like throwing in other cards too. And I threw in a Donovan McNabb card because I have no interest in Donovan McNabb. And I walked a half a block to the post office, and I paid $3 for the stamp. And because I'm thinking of the math and I sent it out to him. That was it's out. It'll be there Monday or Tuesday. That was my first card sale.
You got a taste now. You got to do it a lot more times.
Well, and then someone just bought, someone wants to PayPal me for, where's that random ass card? This. Clay Thompson, they want to give me $15, Josh.
You're making big money now.
Is there a minimum that you sell that's like not like, is this a waste of my time to go and buy $3 stamp and package
It might not be.
this?
It might not be today, but I think as you get more into it, yeah, like eventually you'll just. I usually send those in lots to like auction places and just have them do it for me.
Oh, you'll do like a PWCC or a ComC or something like that?
I just send it to Probstein like in a big box. Like here's like 20 cards under $100 that I don't feel like listing individually.
And they just do it all for you.
I mean, you're obviously paying the fees, but I'd pay the fees on eBay and I pay the fees with my time. So like I might as well.
Oh, 100%. I just needed to feel what it was like. You know what I mean? Like I needed to actually do one to feel as though I'm not just hoarding. And so that felt really good. But I did my first PSA submission yesterday. So I'm waiting on that to come back, which is great. It's a wild time, man. A lot of stuff is happening.
Yeah, you're in it now, man. All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up. Any final words for the audience?
Hit me up in the DMs. I need to start separating where I talk to people. So don't take offense to this, but if you could hit me up on the Lefkoe Cards account, I would appreciate that. I started that because I needed a place where I could only follow card accounts because I didn't want my algorithm to get messed up, and I messed it up. I'm not seeing any of my friends or family anymore. I'm just like, Big Boyd Sports Cards, what the fuck are you doing here? Like, get out of here. So I'm always down to chat. I talk to people all the time. And keep it positive. And if you want to buy or sell or trade, I'm down because it's fun. So, yeah. All
right, man. Really appreciate you having on. We're excited to have you in the hobby and
thanks.
Get
Bro.
Shaq and Charles into the hobby. That'll be sick.
Man, can you imagine Charles with a collection? That'd be wild.
He'd only buy exactly what he likes, right? He only can tell the truth. He's not going to buy players he doesn't like.
I don't know if he likes this though. He would probably be like, I'm not getting in that shit. I'm gonna spend my money on drinks. I'd be like, okay, fine.
All right, man. See you later.
See ya.